the TCS is going to speak after me. Guys, so we have Shay here from WeWork. She's just going to give a quick introduction on the space we're in today, the lovely space.
Hey guys, how's it going? How many of you guys have been to a WeWork before? Solid, some of you. So if you guys don't know what we do, we provide the space, community, and services for businesses of all sizes. So basically, you can just come in and get your work done, and we take care of everything else.
Thank you, Shay. All right, guys, welcome to Tezos Boston Meetup number 2. We're here in the Genesis block today. And I am Ken Garofalo. I'm with the company CryptoLiveLeak. And who the hell am I? Well, I'm the founder of that company, CryptoLiveLeak, and the CEO. It's a cryptocurrency news and media company that does custom marketing. And we also have a website, CryptoLiveLeak.org, that does attention mining for blog posts for both users viewing and posting. So how do we get hooked up with Tezos? Well, we're a Tezos enthusiast myself. I started producing videos on Tezos and met with the Tezos Commons Foundation, Shaun and Sam, had a few beers, and next thing you know, we're hosting meetups here in Boston. So a little intro to Tezos. I'm sure a lot of you already know what it is, but some things that make it unique are the formal verification aspect of its smart contracts. It is a smart contract platform. This formal verification aspect is necessary for high risk or high value smart contracts, such as those used by financial institutions or even robotics factories. They have an on-chain governance mechanism where stakeholders can vote on proposed protocol upgrades that then self-amend into its existing ledger. So you actually don't need hard forks. If you guys remember, back in 2016, Ethereum had an instance where they had a DAO hack, and they made a centralized decision to hard fork their chain, so you had Ethereum Classic and Ethereum. Well, the great thing with Tezos is that won't ever happen. You can reach consensus with this on-chain governance aspect. It's also a proof-of-stake mechanism, protocol, where they use the term baking instead of mining or staking. So this example of
70,000 bakers
here would be if the existing Tezos out there were broken up into groups of 10,000 per, which is the minimum requirement to become a baker participating in the network by yourself. Of course, you can delegate if you have a smaller amount or don't want to deal with baking yourself. And this is basically what baking on Tezos looks like. This is a good meme that came out the other day. As you'll see here, we got this guy just comfortably enjoying a cup of coffee on his laptop, baking away, getting his interest, his annual, his dividend payment we can compare it to. Mining, of course, with all the wires and expensive devices. So we have the Tezos Foundation. Tezos Foundation was created to accept in the ICO money and manage the money. This is separate from the developers. This is separate from Arthur Brightman and Kathleen Brightman, who are associated with DLS, which is a corporation based out of Delaware. So Tezos Foundation is based out of Switzerland. They have the current president, Ryan Jesperson, who's been an absolute rock star, making a ton of partnerships with the money that was raised during the ICO. So we started with about 232 million that's now appreciated upwards close to $1 billion. This happened back in July of 2017. Flash forward today, we have partnerships with Okamal Software Foundation, Obsidian Systems, Okamal Labs, Amedia, Inria, Cryptonomic, HackerOne, and Tezbox. So these are a variety of different partnerships here. For instance, we have Okamal Software Foundation expanding the education and training on the programming language through the Learn Okamal project at Inria. So this is often considered the greatest barrier to entry with Tezos is their language is not well known. So you see here the foundation making seeds with institutions that are teaching the very basics and fundamentals of the language. And then you get down to some of the wallets that have been funded here. Cryptonomic has made the Galleon wallet, which is one of the first wallets available for users to activate their ICO funds and store Tezos and delegate their Tezos. Tezbox as well, created by Stephen Andrews, was granted money for funding for an audit, and they do similar things to the Cryptonomic wallet. Some more grants here. We have Cornell University, who was awarded some grant money for a 2-year research effort on consensus algorithms, particularly focusing on sharding in blockchain protocols. So sharding is just an example of how we can scale to that next level. Something we could reach, for instance, 10,000 transactions per second sharding is one way that could happen. This is going to need to happen if we are able to compete with networks such as Visa or MasterCard that achieve those standards. You also have the University of Beira Interior out of Portugal. So this is the first project which will fund 2 master theses. This will involve research on the implementation of Tezos event logging for robots in factory environments. Second, phase 2, will explore tools for the static analysis of smart contract and programming languages such as Michelson, which is the language used to program Tezos, on top of Tezos, and then focus on formal verification techniques as well. You also have decentralized consulting, built a robust, clear, and accessible online developer documentation research for the ecosystem. And then France IOI, which developed educational tools, content, activities, and also support other technologies underpinning Tezos. Continuing on the grants. So this is all, by the way, something that's happened in the past half year here. So if you guys remember, under the previous control of the foundation, the money wasn't being spent and allocated. Here, under Ryan's control, you see there's numerous examples of how the ICO money is being used to better the protocol and ecosystem surrounding Tezos. Cryptum Labs continue to publish content for Tezos community, developer tools relating to baking, which is the proof of stake mechanism. And they conduct further research related to the protocol, support Chinese and Spanish speaking Tezos communities by hosting meetups, similar to what we do here in Boston. You also have My Tezos Baker, which is a great resource if you guys are looking to delegate your XTZ to a baking service that'll provide the dividend payment to you, the reward that's subsequent to baking. My Tezos Baker will list all of the available bakers that they have listed on their site and different ratings that people have published on them. So highly recommend you guys check out mytezosbaker.com. We also have Simple Staking, working to integrate Tezos with a Trezor hardware wallet. This provides additional level of security. Of course, the Trezor allows you to keep your private keys offline. And then we have here Kaizen Networks, Universal Mobile Wallet. This is actually really interesting. The wallet will enable Tezos token holders to conduct multi-sig transactions using a multi-party computation. In the future, the network team plans to offer Tezos bakers multi-sig support and mobile access to baking and voting. So imagine if you could access baking and voting directly from your cell phone. That is really going to help with adoption. So if you guys are interested, if you have a project you're working on, there are different ways to apply to the Tezos Foundation grants here. If you want to just copy these down or see me after, I can provide those links for you, and you guys can submit your application for funding. So another project I want to highlight that's building on Tezos. We actually have someone in the audience here, Shaun, that is associated with this project, and he can go into this in further detail. Just a high-level overview of this. It's an interoperable layer that will connect other blockchains under one umbrella. And again, this is being built on top of the Tezos protocol. Their core product and complementary components target businesses, personal users, developers, decentralized apps, and entrepreneurs.
Problem is our customer OS solving?
What was that?
What problem is our customer OS solving? Like
An interoperability layer. So, Shaun, do you want to?
Well, it's actually on a DApp. Interoperable DApps.
okay.
Yeah.
Between blockchain?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Excellent, guys. Almost done with this here. We'll get Shaun up here. And just to wrap it up, we just have some speculative buzz here. This is just me talking for entertainment purposes here. So we have Tim Draper predicts Bitcoin to 250,000 USD per Bitcoin by 2022. We have Olaf Carson on the Tezos Foundation board. He is an open investor in the Tezos ICO, and he was also one of the first employees at Coinbase. We have the Winklevoss twins, who have invested in the Tezos ICO through Winklevoss Capital. Of course, they own the Gemini exchange. If you know their story, of course, they're over here at Harvard with Facebook and whatnot. So Gemini and NASDAQ have gotten comfortably close with each other over the past few months here. So what does this mean to you? Does this make you more excited about Tezos? I'd like to see some predictions from the crowd, how they feel about Tezos at this point, whether it's a price prediction or a protocol prediction. Does anyone have anything they'd want to predict? Just an icebreaker? Okay, I'll give one. So,
To the moon.
to the moon, I like it. All right, that's a great answer. All right, guys, thank you for bearing with me here, and Shaun will be up next speaking a little more technical for you guys. And he is with the Tezos Commons Foundation.
Thanks for the introduction. Well, thank you everybody for coming out. So I'm not much of a speaker, so I'm going to be a little bit informal about this. But my name is Shaun Belcher, and I'm on the board of directors with the Tezos Commons Foundation. And we started back in March, and we held an election amongst the actives right after we had secured the foundation back when Ryan had joined as the president. So the last 5 months, 6 months, we've really been playing on a game board that has been changing the pieces around. And part of the issue that people are having in the Tezos ecosystem is to identify simple ideas that you can find with other projects, such what is the roadmap? How do I initiate a protocol amendment vote? And that is largely yet to be written. But what's happening now is essentially the keys are being handed over to the users. We've had a successful beta net launch. And to date, it's been fairly stable. So I think the only major issue we've really had since the launch would be the double contract fee. Otherwise, it's been up. Besides the TZ scan nodes, I don't know if any of you are bakers or how involved you are, but largely it's been stable. So the main issue that I'm running into is people are asking, how do I get involved? And as Ken put up before, is the application for funding. The Tezos Foundation is actually more like a lightweight API interface where you can request funds. You can put together teams and you can put together companies, or it can be an individual pursuit in which you believe that it can better the ecosystem. Many are looking at people like Arthur and they're looking for guidance. And right now, he's not stepping away from the project. He's essentially just joining us in the community. So what we're really looking for now is developers who can go out and actually build on top of the protocol. We are making efforts to expand ourselves in terms of local chapters, but in a large part, we're effectively moving forward with all the funding requests. So we have a lot of work to do in that sense. We're sort of in a consolidation period, and we're trying to aggregate all this information on what everybody's working on, what types of, and effectively build a roadmap from what people want to do. So I'm a little short with words, but I mean, if you have any questions, I'm open.
Is Nicholson going to have the cryptographic primitives necessary for zero-knowledge proofs, like elliptic curve pairs, that kind of thing?
I'm actually not sure.
Okay.
What was the question?
Whether Nicholson is going to, like...
Yeah, it was whether Mickelson would have primitives for zero-knowledge proofs.
Yeah.
There is actually an implementation for ZK snarks being worked on, but apparently it's private.
Oh, okay.
That's all I've been able to get. Anybody else have questions?
What's the point of stable coins?
There is none.
There is none.
I mean, it's kind of
That's a very broad question.
Well, it seems counterintuitive. I don't know of anything in the universe that's really stable, except for a scam. Everything moves.
Yeah. The only thing that's constant is change, right?
Yeah, and how much of it? So.
Can you touch a little bit on tokenization on the platform? Is it possible? What kind of aspects would
differentiate a token created on Tezos platform compared to Ethereum?
As far as the difference in the dApps between platforms?
dApps or characteristics of tokenization?
I don't think it's much different between what Ethereum has beyond the fundamentals of the language, or it wasn't really envisioned to have a lot of tokens. At least that's not what the founders felt. They were looking more for native integration. But as we all know, if you can run a contract, you can create a token on it. We happen to be pursuing that with Orchestrum. But I guess the problem is it creates a gateway or a toll, which nobody really likes. As you can see, we ripped most of them out on I-90. And even that's a little bit annoying. But effectively, you're creating another gate, and there has to be a really good reason to buy that token and hold it, rather than just hold the fiat, because at that point, you're converting between multiple currencies or tokens. So I'm not sure if that really answers the question, but
Not the purpose envisioned initially.
not necessarily, but it can all be done. I mean, Mickelson's a very strong, low-level language, and with liquidity, it's a little more sane to work with. The nice part is, effectively the nice part is being able to rely on the OCaml verified libraries, and at least knowing that you have a solid foundation to work with. Formal verification isn't the answer to everything. It's just a tool to be able to predict specific outcomes with specific code. You can't formally verify everything.
I guess the same goes for ICOs. Can they currently occur on the platform? Would people want to wait till mainnet?
Actually, that's a good point. So one of the things that's come up is actually the mainnet label. And there's some dispute over who actually gets to decide that. But effectively, mainnet is when the community has decided that the network is stable enough to be live for the public, that you can trust large transactions going over it, and that we're relatively bug-free. There's not going to be an entirely bug-free environment. I mean, if we're not finding 1 or 2 a month, then we're not doing our job, all in all. But so effectively, the build right now could be considered mainnet. I'm interested to see how it goes over the next 2 weeks. They said the end of Q3, or at least that's how it was stated as a bullet point for the Tezos Foundation put out. But it can be anything in between. So I'm expecting to hear some news within the next few weeks.
How easy is it to start up a node?
To start up a node? It's relatively easy. I think the largest problem people run into is just virtualization with the BRAP package. On Mac OS, it's a little bit more difficult, and on Windows Linux subsystem, it's been a little bit of a pain. We've gotten some inconsistent results. But largely, if you can install a certain set of packages, then it will spin right up. I actually have a script from front to back that builds on pretty much Ubuntu 16 to 18 current builds. I haven't had any issues with it, especially with like a VPS.
Where do you find that?
I can actually pull it up.
Maybe missing a zero on that. Believe it or not, that's a few $1 million, yeah. That's what it costs.
What, for listing?
For listing on Binance, yeah.
Well, CZ actually put out an article not too long ago. I believe it was earlier this month, or it was late July. And they're not really into setting a listing fee. They're really just looking for quality products. So there's a lot of products they just don't charge. So I've talked to some exchanges. There is some complications in that regard, but some of it has just been finding support for them, and people were able to work with them directly. And it's not as simple as just listing an ERC20 token. They need to consider their security, how they're going to set it up for a new Genesis token, and how they're going to integrate it into their current, if they have a scripting system, they have to look at their cold and hot wallet storage. Some of them might want to consider baking for clients that are leaving funds on the exchange. Part of the problem is with an inflationary rate, like about 5%. You know, if I leave my funds in the exchange for a year, which is not recommended anyways in crypto, I'm going to lose value. And so there are companies like Gate.io who have, or they've set up baking. The only concern there is if the exchange has decided to use your deposit as the bond. So you don't want them to do that, because if they get broken into, you can lose everything. So there's a lot to consider for exchanges. There's a lot of risk when it comes to regulation. They have to they'll often ask for legal opinions, whether Tezos is a security. It is not a security. I'm kind of an attestament to that, because I've been working for the last 8 months solid, as have my friends, and many if you're involved in the ecosystem. And yeah, there's no central entity. It's extremely hard to get information at times, but it's worth it, because there's no ownership, there's no sole ownership. So I do expect exchanges to be coming around the corner. In regards to node building, this is really the brunt of it. At least with Ubuntu, the only issue, and I'm not sure if it's still a major problem, is bubble wrap. Adding a repository for bubble wrap, that usually gets people if they're trying to run a 1604 server. This is just a fast build script, because I had to build it across dozens of systems really quickly to be able to instruct other users who were just entirely lost. And so I just built a single script that would just go through and build these, because the OPAM initiation and the compiling the language actually, and compiling the project will take some time. So I kind of skipped through a lot of that. So I mean, effectively, I'm just installing some packages. I'm pulling the GitHub repository and calling the init, evaluating the environment, actually down here, I'm cloning it, and then I'm just building the project. At the bottom, there's just a few lines that kick off the node sync, and it's a little more complicated than that, but that actually gets you a node that's up and working within a few lines across Debian as well.
What's the wait command do?
Which command?
The wait command after git clone?
Oh, originally it was, it tried to skip too fast. It went to pull, when I was pulling the clone, it tried to CD into the project folder. And I had a delay on my network at one point.
Oh,
so
okay.
Instead of guessing, I have to work with a lot of people who just get stuck in different areas. So I need something that's reliable, because we don't always speak English as a first language. So sometimes it's easier to give them a set of instructions to kind of work with, or at least as a step-by-step, so they can kind of go back and look at it. It's certainly not perfect, and there's a ton of guides online for actually how to build nodes. But that will actually get you a syncing node with the extra few lines at the bottom. From there, like there's a lot more to consider in actually setting up the system. How you're configuring your security. Are you behind a VPN? Do you have SSH access? Is it local? Have you set up keys to get into it? I would recommend, if you do run a node, to run the hardware locally. Yeah. A lot of people are using VPSs, but there's a lot of uncertainty there. Whether it's you're using AWS HSM to hold the keys, I mean, you still have to deal with the risk added into the environment with meltdown. So it's not always safe. It's best to actually own your hardware, your connections. You can actually hide your node entirely from the network. If you actually set up a secure VPN, you can set it to private mode, and you can actually tell it to use public nodes on the front end. And if those are also on VPNs, it will actually, your IP address is effectively hidden, because the public nodes that are actually syncing the node, or don't know where your calls are originating from. So there's a lot to be considered. And I think there's a lot of information that has to be covered, but there's separate guides as to how to set those up. I started to cover some of this. So here's my partially broken website, and effectively I'm trying to build an aggregate of information or a directory in order to find these type of resources. As far as user guides, development, where organizations are, where can you get an application for a grant. A lot of this doesn't exist. It's just been entirely spread out between 20, 30 groups of people.
Thank you.
Name of that site?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's tezoscafe.org. And it's still in progress, but I've been operating sort of in between sort of a management oversight, development, just between all the organizations. I've been trying to just route people to find what they need. So I kind of got stuck in a strange role in the whole system. Does anybody have any questions? No?
Is that everything? You want to talk about Orchestrum OS a little bit?
I'm actually not going to talk about Orchestrum because we're going to be releasing more documentation and details in the next few weeks, so mid-September. But thank you for the introduction on that.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, thank you so much for coming. Make sure to continue networking. If you guys want any of our cards, just come out, reach out to us, and then make sure to enjoy some wine, beer. Thank WeWork for hosting this event here, and some food.